Hello and welcome back to Movement Monastery. I'm Francesco and today we're talking about the muscle up as it relates to the bar and doing it slowly through. We will be going over kipping muscle ups in a different video, so stay tuned for that next time. First of all, we're going to be talking about strength requirements and the range of motion you need, and then we're going to talk about actually doing the transition through, which is where most people are having a problem. Okay, so the first thing we're talking about here is our pull-up. Now, most of you know you should have at least 5 pull-ups to be able to do a muscle up, but it's not just being able to do 5 pull-ups, it's being able to do 5 pull-ups as high as possible. That means the pull-up cannot end at the shoulder. The pull-up has to start getting into a position where you're feeling yourself lifting even higher than that. So your pull-up has to be powerful, it has to be fast, and you need to be able to pull to a higher position than just your shoulder line. So most people finish their pull-up at their shoulder line. But really, what you need to be able to do is a pull-up to a higher position. To there, right? You notice in that position, I'm actually at my chest line to there, and that's going to take a lot more pushing power, actually. You're doing a pull-up into a push, and I'll show you how to build that strength a little bit later. So what's happening at the top of that pull is as you're coming up, you're actually doing a bit of a rounding of the shoulders and pulling down or pushing down almost. You're going to start feeling this in your elbows probably when you first start doing it, because your triceps are going to start to do a little bit of a pulling motion or pushing motion downward. So it's not just a pull, it's a pull into this little bit of a downward motion, okay? And there's specific drills and exercises that I can show you to be able to do that transition. We're going to work on those as ancillary work to this as well. But first things first, your pull-up can't end at the shoulders. It has to get just below the chest line. One more time. From here, a fast, powerful pull all the way to the top. Another thing you have to think about is you have to keep your legs tight together. The tighter they are together, the more easy they are to control, and then it's going to be more consistent for your body to figure out where you are in space. If things are wiggling all over the place, it's going to be a lot harder for your body to find those positions to be able to do this skill and learn it quicker. Okay, next part is the dip, the bar dip. Now, again, we have to talk about the position you got to get into. It's not enough just to be able to do a bar dip a little bit. Your bar dip has to be the lowest bar dip you've ever possibly done. In fact, you're going to get to a point where you feel like you're about to fall underneath the bar. That's the lowest point you can get to and the part you have to be thinking about. So, if I jump up here to the top, and I'm completely extended up here, I'm going to lower down. Okay, so most people stop their bar dip here, but we're going to take it a little bit farther and then come back up. Coming down a little bit farther and then come back up. So I'm getting to the point where if I went any lower, I would start to fall underneath the bar. Now I'm already pretty strong in my elbows, so I can go down a lot farther than most people can. But what I'm trying to do is create as little bit of a gap between my pulling motion and my pushing motion. This is how that transition becomes easier between the pull to the push. Most of us train the pull, most of us train the push, and there's this huge gap between our pull into our push that makes it really hard for us to transition through because we have no strength in that area. Once again, we're going to go over some specific drills for that. Stay tuned. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the transition. Now, the transition can be done 2 ways. Depends on how you grip the bar. Either you have to grip the bar in false grip, or you have to grip it normally. Now, false grip is when you actually have your forearm flexed here, and you're resting the weight right here on the palm instead of in the knuckles or the fingertips. And that's going to allow you to transition through a lot easier. But it's really hard at first because most people don't have the strength in their forearms to hold themselves on the bar in that flex position. And overall, it kind of takes away a little bit of your pulling power because of that. So I'm going to show you what that false grip looks like real quick. I have my hands here, 1 and 2, like that. And I'm going to try and hang on the bar. So all I'm doing right here is just hanging from my wrists. And I'm going to try and lift and hold my body weight in the wrist position. So if you're unable to hold your body weight in that false grip position, then I probably wouldn't start with that one to start with. You can build up to that strength just by slightly hanging on the bar with your wrists like that and keeping your feet on the floor. And just hanging, getting used to that position. Your forearms will cramp up a lot at first, and that's okay. They will get stronger with time. Also just doing end range holds where you're completely squeezing this position really, really hard, kind of trying to show off your forearm. That's also going to help you out over time. So strong flexion positions like that, getting the wrists used to being in that position, and then also getting the tissues of the wrist used to being in that position as well. Now if you're using the hand grip, the finger grip position, you're going to do kind of an in-between one with that. Because even though you have it at the knuckles, you have it a little bit higher up into that area. And that's going to make it easier for you to transition over. So you don't want to just be here in the knuckles, you want to have a little bit more over the top like that. And that's going to kind of create this bridging position between your false grip, completely false grip, and then also completely on the fingertips. And this will also allow you to shift over. Speaking of shifting, that's the next part of this. The shifting motion is once you've gone and pulled up high enough, when you shift over into your push, you have to also turn your hands over. If you don't do that, you're going to push your wrist back really hard and it can be quite painful. So that's another thing people have to learn how to do when they're doing the muscle ups. They have to learn how to shift their hands over the top. Shifting the hands over the top, you can practice it by doing jumping muscle ups. You jump up with your hands in the slightly false grip position and shift your hands over into the top. So from here, I'd have my hands underneath. I would start directly underneath the bar. I don't want to be back here. Directly underneath the bar, and I'm going to quickly jump, and then I shift my hands over and I stand up tall. Push up tall. Directly underneath the bar, pull up quickly, shift up. And it's really important that you start directly underneath the bar because that'll help build your pathway for doing the muscle up on your own. If you start behind the bar, it's going to be very awkward to kind of calibrate that into the next part. So starting right beneath it, pull up, shift over the top. So we have the different components for this. Now we've got to talk about some of the things involving your mobility and your transitions. So we're going to go do something inside on a sliding surface before we come back out here to do this part. So these are called zombie crawls. Pardon my dogs. You're going to lay down flat. You're going to put your hands out in front of you. You're going to pull yourself into a seal stretch or a cobra stretch. So you're going to pull and then push up. Okay? Again, here, pulling, and I want to make sure I pull all the way to the pushing position with my hands. So I don't want to push up too early. I want to get myself all the way to this stack position here. Okay? So I'm going to put this towel a little bit lower so I slide better. And from here, I'm going to pull forward all the way to here, and then I'm going to push up. Okay? And all that's doing is teaching me to pull down toward my chest, so then I can then push my body in a more stacked position. Very similar to the bar muscle up out there I was showing. Now, once you can kind of do that, your next thing is being able to do that without the towel. So you're going to be doing, it's called a downward dog or a diving monkey push-up. You start in a push-up position, and then you're going to slide your hips back. This one takes a lot of coordination, so it might be a little hard for you. From here, my hips have to be directly up, and I'm pushing through my arms. I'm going to drop my elbows down to the floor, and then from here, I'm going to rock forward, and then I'm going to shift my weight into my hands, and then I'm going to press up into a stretch position. I'm going to go backwards too, down to the position here, stack position, hips come back, elbows come down, and I press up and through. Again, from here, elbows down, keep going forward, once my hands shift, and then that pressing position, and then up, and then down, and back, and up. Diving monkey. Okay, that's what we used to call it in parkour. And that transition right there is really, really useful for feeling what it's like to pull into a push. There's one more. These are called Russian pull push-ups. And when you do the push-up, You're going to come down and then shift to the forearms and come back. And this is a really good way to learn how to do that shifting motion from a push to a pull. So in this one, you have to actually start really high up on your toes. So when you come down, you can shift back to your forearms, come up, and here. So all I'm doing is shifting back and forth. This one takes a bit of practice too. The trick is to do as little bit of shuffling around with your feet as possible and just have a quick shift back and forth. Right? So you watch my feet. I'm on top of my toes right now. Usually I do this with shoes on because it can be uncomfortable. I don't really care. So I'm on top of my toes. Bottom of my push-up here. Notice where my forearms are. And then I slide back to my forearms here. Come forward, back to the position here, and press back up again. So those transitions there, those three different ones, okay, very different. In my opinion, as far as difficulty goes, the first one I showed you, that's the easiest. Then the Russian one's the second. And then the hardest one is the diving monkey, to do them all correctly and get the benefit of them. So make sure you look at those things, try them out. Let's get back outside and talk some more about the bar muscle up. Okay, so we went through the progressions. Now we're going to go through two last ones that kind of lead up to this, especially for the bars. You have your eccentrics or your negatives, okay? And then you just have the muscle up itself. Now I'm going to start with the muscle ups first because the eccentrics are going to get me tired and I won't be able to demonstrate the muscle up. So here is the false grip muscle up first. So I really enjoy getting chalk from Friction Labs. Hey Friction Labs, let's do something together. Let's collab. Alright, there you go. So I got some chalk nice and ready, especially in this spot because this is where you're going to get the most rubbing against right there. Put my hands over the top here. False grip position. And to the top. So you saw how important it was to have my feet in front of me, to lift myself to the top, and how much I was keeping them in a solid position to pull myself up to the top. So it's actually kind of nice being on a lower bar because it forces you to keep your legs in front of you. When you're in full hang, it can be a little bit trickier because you might be having a light swing to you. So the goal again is to have as little swing as possible so you can really focus on where your feet should be and everything along those lines. And again, there's two different types of muscle ups for the basic ones, and that is the kipping one and this just strength one. So we're doing the strength one first. So that bar is probably about a couple hundred degrees, or 100 degrees, sorry, because I'm in Arizona. Anyway, if you paid attention to my hands there, I'll replay the video, you can see that my hands shifted. They went from here, over, and then I was able to push. So, just keep in mind whichever one you practice both. I recommend practicing both because it's always better to be multi-adaptable instead of not. Same thing goes for strict muscle up versus skipping muscle up. They both have their value. Now, let's talk about the eccentric, the lowering part of it. So as I lower down, I'm going to go as slow as I possibly can through the transition. This can be a little painful at first, and I don't recommend doing a lot of them, maybe 3 of them if you're first time trying it, and you really do have to go slow. You really do. And on the rings we're going to do something a little bit different just to make it a little safer for us. On the bars it can be a little bit tricky. You can use a band for this. You can put a band around your legs when you do the lowering part. I don't recommend doing it when you go upward though. I think it messes with your equilibrium and your calibration system, even when you go slow. So I highly recommend not using a band for doing this and really just focusing on your true strength development. Rings is a little different, but for this one, on the bar, it's going to be different. So from the top here, I'm going to lower down to my dip position, get as low as I possibly can. And then lowering down. And again, I'm going as slow as I possibly can through that transition. Now I'm going pretty slow, and there's actually one more exercise I can show you to help you get that kind of strength in your elbows and your triceps. So the first time I ever did these, I felt like my elbows were going to explode. So go slow at first, keep the rep range low, and you can adjust the amount of pressure you put on yourself for these. Okay? You're going to have both your hands palms facing down, and you're going to lean into a bar. You can use this on a couch too, or a bed. But from here, you're going to just keep your elbows locked out and straight, and you're going to let the elbows bend, and then you push back through. I can do it on a lower one, with the same exact position here. Through, and back. Okay? If I'm up a little bit higher, I can do the same thing with a little bit less tension on my body. Okay? The closer I put my feet, the easier it's going to be. I can do this really low to the ground on my knees as well, right? Or I can go really, really straight like this and make them really, really difficult. Alright, so you have them that direction, and then you also have them this direction, which is a little harder on the bar, and then you also have side of the palm. Alright, and all that's doing is it's isolating the tension in your elbow for your tricep. It's also a lot of lat work to be able to get that nice strong position to be able to push through when you're doing your muscle ups. So I highly recommend doing that conditioning drill right there. A good one to aim for is 10 in each position, 10 palms down, 10 neutral, 10 palms up, and make sure that you do it in a fashion where you can still do the skill, all right, and go all the way through it. And really you only have to do 10 of each, and I would do that at the very end of your training. If you do it at the beginning of your training, it's going to make you very fatigued because it's an isolation drill. Okay, so keep in mind, do that later, don't do it at the beginning. So some quick format for you for muscle up would be you do your pull-ups as high as possible, you do your dips as low as possible, you go do your transition work. Alright, transition work, that means either the sliding ones or you do the Russian push-ups, or you can do the diving monkeys. After that I would do some false grip work where you're hanging, and then I would also do your eccentrics, your lowering as slow as possible, and then finish up with these right here. That right there, alright, if you put it into a nice strength format, I recommend maybe twice a week at the most right now, depending on how much time you have to recover in between. You could do more if you're younger probably, but just be careful about that. That being said, one more thing that's really useful for you is the mobility in the shoulders, and being able to go from completely rotated here to rotation here. This is where I lack, is having this internal rotation position. So just by working that position like that and doing some capsular stretching of the shoulder there and some end range pails and rails and cars, articular rotation stuff, I will put an ancillary video for how to train that position. Lies. I will do it in this video for you right now. Okay, so what was I talking about with that internal rotation thing? Now, the idea that you have to turn yourself over like that with your arms, that you have to turn your arms over like this when you go into your muscle up, you have to be able to withstand that position, all right? And if you aren't practicing that position a lot of people don't have this internal rotation, you're more likely to hurt your shoulders in the process of doing this. So one way you can build the mobility for that is you start yourself in a 90-90 position, 90 degrees here, 90 degrees here. And from that, I'm going to put my hand to the back of my wrist, and then I'm going to push down. I have to really make sure to keep my form here, and I don't push away, or I don't bring my shoulder up. You want to feel a stretch, an internal deep stretch in here, a capsular shoulder stretch. If I bring my other shoulder up, I'll feel it more. I just make sure to maintain that. And I'm going to do a normal pails and rails protocol for this. So I would hold this for about 1:30 minutes, 90 seconds. At the end of that, I would do an isometric contraction where I'm pushing against my hand here to try and fight the stretch. And then I would do a contraction the other way, trying to go deeper into the stretch by pulling down, and do those each for 10 seconds each, right? So 90-second stretch, 10 seconds this way, 10 seconds this way of contraction. And then I relax for another 30 seconds, stretch a little more, repeat the process. 10 seconds push this way, 10 seconds push that way, right? And then I just come out of it and I do a few of these back and forth, and then I would do the other side. Okay, coming down, get that 90-90 position here, hand on top, and you pull down until you feel that deep capsular stretch in that position. Minute 30, 90 seconds, contraction this way, contraction this way. My whole body should be contracting when I do that. Then a 30-second stretch again, then I repeat the process. Push through here, push through there, okay, come up, and do a few of those again. So you have practically everything you need to do this. The rice bucket will be very useful for you as well, which I'll put a link to in this as well to have everyone do that. Wrist strengthening, I'm coming up with all kinds of videos involving that kind of stuff too. So just stay tuned for all that, and you'll see all that start popping up on my YouTube channel. I'll have to do the rings at a different time because I have to get to one of my online clients. I'll talk to you all soon. Be safe. Have a great day. Enjoy the journey. Also, please, if you have the time, I'd love if you would subscribe to the channel, like the stuff I'm doing, and if you can, I would really appreciate it if you would share this information with other people, because I really think there's a lot of information out there that's not helping, and I'd like to be one of those people that does help. So that's all I got to say about that. And again, like I said before, be safe, have a great day, and next time we will talk about the ring muscle up in all its glory and the amazing benefits of doing ring muscle ups and talking on a camera while doing them. See you guys. Have a great day.